Hi again, it's Daniel, and in this video we are going to be comparing my old computer with my new computer through a series of benchmarks. So first let's go over what the two computers are. In my old computer, it was an AMD-based system with a Ryzen 7 3800X. This was cooled by a Noctua NHD15 at 32 gigabytes of RAM. My graphics card was a 1080 Ti. I had 512 gigabytes of Western Digital Black SN850 storage. That's a PCIe 4 M.2 SSD. And then I had a Lian Li LAN cooled 2. In my new Intel Dream PC, which is sitting right beside me, I have an i9 12900K. I have, to cool it, I have the MSI Core Liquid S360. Then there's 32 gigabytes of RAM. It's the same speed. I have as the graphics card, the MSI RTX 3070. Then I have a 1 terabyte Western Digital Black SN850 drive, all in a Be Quiet Silent Bass 802 white chassis. So the first benchmark here is the Passmark. Passmark performance test is a test everything with your system, and you can use the oldest of the old computers to the newest cutting edge technology computers with this, and it'll give you a relative score here versus the rest of the world. Here we're looking at the score of the new system, the new Intel system in blue, versus my old AMD system in red. As you can see, the new Intel system demolishes, mainly in the CPU category. The 12900K absolutely blows the 3800X out of the water, and it also helps when it comes to gaming. As we can see, the 3D graphics isn't too far off, and that's because the 3070 itself isn't too far ahead in most gaming scenarios when it is compared to the 1080 Ti. That doesn't say that the 1080 Ti doesn't have ray tracing, doesn't have any tensor cores for DSR, DLDSR, DLSS, and then RTX. So it may not seem that big of a difference in the 3D graphics department, but the new RTX 3070 does have a lot more performance and features. Next up, this is Cinebench R20 and R23 multi-threaded. Here, it really shows how much better the 12900K is compared to the 3800X. The R20 and R23 are very similar benchmarks by Cinebench, and I think just the graphs show it. The new Intel system, when it comes to multi-threaded performance, absolutely blows my old system out of the water. This is really practical when it comes to multitasking, or when streaming while gaming, or when doing homework and projects and work and having everything open all at the same time. It means I'm not compromising on performance while still being efficient and effective in my workload. And then here we see the single core performance. This is what's going to most impact gaming. In the R20 and R23, the new Intel system absolutely, again, blows the 3800X out of the water. And although this is a 3800X, it's the last generation of AMD CPUs. The new ones are 5000 series, 5800X, 5900X. The thing is, if you want to see graphs online, 12900K still wins. The performance that this new Intel CPU has is mesmerizing. It's absolutely astonishing that it has this much performance, this much potential compared to what else is on the market. So here we see the single core absolutely destroyed the 3800X. Next up, we have Blender benchmark. This is, note here in this graph, lower is better. This is seconds to complete. And just with the classics, BMW 27 and Classroom, if we look at the top two, that's using CPU. And we can see that the 12900K runs circles around the 3800X. It's half the time in each. When it comes to GPU, here's the tensor cores, here's the extra features that I was talking about when it comes to the RTX 3070. The 1080 Ti and RTX 3070 in a typical game may only be 15% apart. But when it comes to compute, when it comes to anything, AI related, machine learning related, RTX related, it really makes a difference. Or compute related, as in this case, it really does make a difference, the new RTX 3000 cards. So now into more gaming focused benchmarks. Here we have Unigine Heaven. Now this is an older benchmark, but I think it represents a lot of older and even more recent games that are using older engines or older styles, and it just goes to show that the new Intel Dream PC is a solid amount better than my old system. And to note, this is also on a 1440p ultra wide monitor, and with that, it is coming dangerously close to 4K resolution. And whenever you're gaming at 4K resolution, the biggest influence is the graphics card. The CPU really helps out at 1080p, but for 1440p and 4K, it matters, but doesn't matter as much. So here we see the actual frames per second that we get. It's all based on the graphics card. But if you have a lower end CPU, it won't be able to keep up. It won't be able to have programs open in the background. It won't be able, if you go low enough, you may not even be able to play music on Spotify in the background. So, and this again is without ray tracing, without DLSS, without any of the fancy features of the RTX series. Here's a more modern Unigine benchmark. I believe it's from 2017, but it does the job. It shows 4K and 8K performance. And here we can see what I was just talking about with how at 4K the CPU matters less, and at 8K, the higher resolution you go, the less the CPU matters, as long as it can initially keep up. So if I was playing games at 8K, my old system, the GPU in my old system might be able to handle it. The CPU is a different story. But at 4K and at ultra-wide 1440p, which is what I run, this new system still wins, still dominates. Next up, the classic 3D Mark Firestrike. Here just gives us a bunch of different scores based on different things. Of course, if we look at the overall, the new Intel system is just better. Graphics and combined score. If we look at the physics score, this is where the RTX really comes into play. As I've been talking about, the compute on this card is way better, and it's really beneficial whenever, if you're streaming, if you're editing, pretty much anything. It's really beneficial to have more performance. And then lastly, we have 3D Mark Time Spy. Here, talking about the graphics, again, 3070 we've established is better than the 1080 Ti. Here it's about a bit over 30% faster. When it comes to the CPU, it's almost 75% faster, which really just goes to show that the new Intel system is miles better than my old system. And it's much quieter as well, as it's sitting next to me right now and you won't be able to hear it. But that about concludes it for the benchmarks. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you are really starting to understand how amazing this new system is and how much performance Intel has achieved with their new 12th gen CPU lineup, primarily the 12900K. Thanks for watching.